So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next installment of the Quantum Leap 24-hour non-stop business show going around the world to greet you all in every corner of the globe. It's my pleasure to have on the show right now Colin McIntosh. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. And I can't believe you're doing a 24-hour program. It's going to be wild.
Lot of fun. So before we kick into it, Colin, I believe it's a fairly big milestone. You had another rotation of the sun completed, and you're now 31 today. Happy birthday!
Thank you. Yeah, I'm 31 years old, and I've got a lot to be thankful for, including my girlfriend, who just made me a wonderful breakfast that I'm gonna have to just bring in here into the program. And thank you very much. I'm not even joking. That just happened in live time, and I'll have to take a couple bites before it gets too cold on the program. But I got a lot to be thankful for. Thanks, John.
There you go. So for your fellow millennials out there, what are the advantages or disadvantages of being a millennial in the current business climate?
I think probably the number one advantage is just kind of maybe understanding the younger consumer a little bit more in terms of like buying trends and what people want. It's very intrinsic for me to think about the millennial or Gen Z customer, someone who grew up in the 90s, shared the same media as me, watched the same shows, had the same sort of experiences, was the same age during major world changing events. And probably similar socioeconomic position, and it's really helpful just to understand the consumer psychology, and how to speak to that person. And then from a disadvantage perspective, I probably just more of like the outside looking in of the way that people kind of judge the millennial and the Gen Z person. I think every older generation kind of, I'm having a little bit of animosity towards Gen Z, right? You get a little bit older and you immediately move into like, oh, the younger gen, they're doing it wrong. They're doing all things wrong. And so I think that it's probably just the disadvantage of when people hear the word millennial or Gen Z, they'll kind of have an assumption about you in terms of like maybe work ethic or the things that you want handed to you, or the things that you believe. And I think that going in with any broad generalizations of anyone is a mistake. And so that's probably the biggest disadvantage, is just the kind of perception going into a meeting.
Yep. No, interesting to get a point, because we like on this show to get people. I think the oldest person I've had, and I won't give away the person, but it was 84 years old, and he was the founder of a little company called Reebok.
Oh.
So, just a little billion or 4 billion turnover business. So
I'm very flattered to be on the same program as him. I think that's really cool that you have such a wide diversity of folks on, and I could learn so much from listening to him, and I've learned so much from listening to people that have started successful businesses before me. So I'm still learning as I go, and that's another advantage of being a little younger, is if you have some humility and you have the ability to say like, hey, this is my first time starting a company, I'm still learning as I go. People are really open to mentorship and to being someone who can lend an ear and give you some advice. So that's a big advantage too.
Yeah. And the age goes right down to 19, where the guy was a blogger at, I don't know, 14 or 15. He's only 19 now, and he's
probably making more money than all of us combined. It's the looking back, that's the thing about being a 31-year-old millennial. So I was born in 1990, right? And so I had dial-up internet. I had, Nintendo, the original Nintendo. I had, all the fax machine, trying to connect to the internet, and the initial websites. And I was 17 or 18 when I created my first Facebook. Now kids are doing it at, Instagram at 12 and 11 and stuff like that. And, my first cell phone when I was in high school. And so the other disadvantage of being this particular age is that I feel like if I had grown up in the 2010s as opposed to the 2000s, there's a whole different set of business models and subscription-based business models, like a newsletter or blog, or some of the people that are on YouTube that have millions of subscribers, that I feel like weren't available to me, or weren't even things that I considered or thought about when I was coming up in my early 20s and mid 20s in terms of starting a new business. So it's definitely, I think, for kids that are even younger than I am, for people in their teens and early 20s, there's a whole different subset of business opportunities like blogging and that sort of thing that I just kind of didn't even consider when I was coming up.
Yep. No, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, Colin, you got fired 3 times before you founded a business. How did you deal with that? And what did you learn, especially around change and uncertainty, which I think a lot of people can identify in today's climate?
I learned that sometimes so the main thing that I learned from getting fired 3 times, thank you for pointing that out, is that it getting fired is a good thing. Getting fired generally is when you've reached a breaking point between you and the business that you're currently at, you and your manager, and it's good for everybody's mental health. And so when I've been let go a few times in my career, it was because I was either at a toxic workplace and I didn't fit in and the culture was driving me crazy, or I wasn't being a good employee. I wasn't taking marching orders well, and they needed to let me go and bring on somebody else. And that wasn't going to be healthy for anyone. Or when the company, went under and had to lay everybody off, which was the last startup that I was at. Um, and so that's definitely been a big learning experience for me, that like sometimes failure is actually the best thing that can happen, and especially mental health wise. And it creates a huge amount of opportunity in terms of you have this freedom, and I know it's a very privileged thing to say, the free, like, I was, every time I've been fired, I've been in my 20s with a little bit of savings, very small expenses, no family, no mortgage. And I've slept on friends' couches for a few months. I've had this sort of mentality of, well, what's my worst case scenario? My worst case scenario is that I keep getting hired and fired at different jobs for the rest of my career, which is not not the worst thing in the world. It's just kind of a normal life. And so it gave me, when I was 27 and I got laid off from my last job, it gave me the opportunity to think, well, what's wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? And I kind of realized a few things about myself in terms of I'm a bad foot soldier. I don't take marching orders very well. The first two things out of my mouth are usually why and no, which makes her a very frustrating employee. And I just realized that I had the opportunity to take a chance and be my own boss. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you they started their company because they never wanted to take orders that they disagreed with again.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, well, I guess, and that follows on that you can never make real money working for someone else or selling your time for money.
Well, I don't want to say never, because I know some guys who work at Google that make a pretty penny, and there's some salaries that are, really climbing out of control, everywhere from medical field to software development. So I think there's plenty of money to be made working for other people. But I do agree that for someone like me who's in sales and business development, there are definitely major opportunities in terms of that, like VP of sales at a major corporation route, or like climbing my way up through a corporate ladder somewhere. But you're absolutely right that, like, when you look at the two, kind of when you're in your late 20s, kind of those two divergent paths, one is you will keep making a certain amount of money and keep spending that certain amount of money, and probably, always spend a little bit more every time you make a little bit more, whether and then you have a family, and then you have a larger house, and then so on and so forth. And you do that for 40 or 50 years, and then you blip out of existence. And then on the other path, you have, the kind of more risk loving path where it's, well, if I take 3 to 6 months and I try to do my own thing, the reward is exponential. And the risk is actually pretty low if you have 3 to 6 months of savings for your current expenses. Or you can do a second job on the side, which I did. I started an Amazon consultancy on the side to pay my rent and to pay my bills. If you do that, then your max loss is that 3 to 6 months of earning potential. And if that's your worst case scenario, then the cost benefit analysis really demands that you start your own business.
Yep. I'll just have to be careful I don't fall into that blip category too soon.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, I say 40, 50 years, we could both blip out tomorrow. In the last year, I think a lot of people have come to that realization. I think a lot of people a lot more people that I'm talking to in their early 20s, 23, 24, they're telling me I've had this realization that I don't want to just work, in sales for Zoom for the rest of my career. I don't want to, just develop software for another company or compliance software, like whatever it is my friends are working on. They're all working on interesting things, but a lot of them have said like, I'm going to start my own thing in the next, 6 to 12 months, and we kick around ideas. And it's really cool to see I think the growth in demand for entrepreneurship, because people are, I mean, in the US, you had tens of millions of people lose their job very suddenly. And uniquely to the US, that also means that tens of million people lost their health insurance like
Yep.
that. And when you lose your income and your family's health care and your sense of purpose and daily life all in one fell swoop, and there's nobody that helps you out in the US government, nobody says, all right, great, we're going to provide, temporary health insurance or Medicare expansion or, whatever it is, and the maximum unemployment, $600 a week, and so on and so forth. I think that a lot of people realize like, oh my God, I am completely dependent and beholden to this other company that I've been dependent on for the last several years, and people don't want that anymore.
Yep. So, Colin, I loved the name when I very first saw it, and Sheets and Giggles, and I can see a little sample there just
Yeah.
to your left behind you. So, tell me about that. A lot of people agonise over coming up with a name for a business, and I know when I put together a company years ago, we had a 5-day lockdown, and we spent the
Yeah.
first 3 trying to come up with a name. Um, Tell me about that little piece.
You probably run through a couple cases of Red Bull and beer if I had to guess when you're coming
Yeah.
up with a name. Um, basically, I gravitate. So there's a couple reasons why Sheets and Giggles. And from a strategic level, I really wanted something, a brand in this space that was like viscerally different. I really believe in differentiation as a necessary piece of the pie and the puzzle. And every brand in this space was boring as hell, bored me to tears. And I thought, and it was, the beauty of the industry is that it was undeservedly serious. So you had, all these companies, in the US, especially with Casper and Brooklinen and these other people that are, 100 plus brands that are, talking about their sheets as if they're curing disease, like they're all, they're God's gift to earth, and you're gonna love your home. You're gonna come home, and your spouse is gonna come back to you, and like your whole life's gonna change. Like they make their sheets feel, seem like they're this unattainable aspirational brand. And I really thought it was really crazy because it's just fabric. Uh, and so and so I thought it was a really lovely way to kind of have some fun, and I had a blank canvas to work with, and so I was really excited to just I put pen to paper first, and I started writing copy that I thought was really funny and compelling and persuasive. And then that copy actually led to the visuals. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of people will do visuals first, and then they'll set up their site and their brand, and then they'll put pen to paper. I only had copy in the beginning. I'm not a photographer, I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a videographer, I'm a writer. And so I just started writing, and I wrote stuff that I was making myself laugh out loud. And we get a lot of people who tell us they go through our website and they laugh the whole time, which increases time on page, lowers bounce rate, lowers exit rate, increases conversion, increases word of mouth, creates more dopamine in the brain, so they're more likely to convert and more likely to be confident in their conversion. And we have this really wonderful opportunity to like engage with people in this really long form copy, which I feel like has gone out of style as people and marketers have believed the world's gotten dumber. They've stopped writing good copy, and they've focused more on the pretty lights aspect of marketing. And for me, it was just really fun to say the brand's Sheets and Giggles. It's going to be a funny first brand in a really boring space. And we're going to also have awesome sustainable products. And that tightrope of funny, sustainable, and premium is going to be an impossible to replicate brand voice. And that was the strategic nature of it. On the less strategic side of it, I was watching a movie one night called War Dogs with Miles Teller and Jonah Hill. The main character, Miles Teller, is about 4 years ago now. was selling bed sheets out of the back of a pickup truck. He completely failed in his endeavor. His customers, his retirement homes he was pitching to, were saying no to him. Why would I buy your sheets? Da da da. And I got so frustrated with this character. I said, he didn't do any pricing research, demographics research. He has no idea who his core customer is. He doesn't have a good business model. He bought all this inventory ahead of time. And I paused the movie and I wrote a business plan for a bed sheets company that night because I'm an insane person. And whenever I write a business plan for a company, I always buy a domain and I think of a brand name and I gravitate towards what's a funny name for blank. I said, what's a funny name for a bed sheets company? And it literally just immediately, Sheets and Giggles, it's a funny name. And I bought sheetsgiggles.com. I got all the social handles, and I'd done that for probably 10 other puns, but that was the one that ended up coming to life.
Brilliant! What a fascinating story. I love.
It's a weird founder story. It's a really weird founder story.
And the actual product itself, I'm familiar with bamboo as a lovely pair of socks. They're the smoothest, most comfortable socks I've ever bought. And you make your stuff out of eucalyptus, which as an Australian, obviously, I've got some roots there. So how did that all come about?
Some roots. Nice. That was good. That was a good pun. So basically I really wanted to do the most sustainable fiber that I could find on the market. And there's a material called eucalyptus lyocell. And basically it's the latest version of what's called cellulosic rayon. So what you're cluing in on with the bamboo is bamboo viscose is the first generation of cellulosic rayon. And so they're very similar fabrics in terms of feel and smoothness and breathability. I would say that the eucalyptus lyocell is even softer and smoother, but crucially, it's more sustainable. So bamboo viscose uses carbon sulfide, which is harmful to workers and environments, and that chemical can't be reused, and so it has to be dumped. And when you're talking about most of bamboo viscose in the world is made in China, you are talking about a lot of that winding up in waterways. And so whereas eucalyptus lyocell is a closed loop process, it's the third generation of the cellulosic rayon process. And it uses amine oxide as its main solvent instead of carbon sulfide. And that can be recaptured and reused in every batch of fiber production. And so it's actually a huge improvement in terms of having a closed loop system with no runoff and no waste. And you get a very similar material, which in my opinion is better. It's more durable, it's more breathable, it's more lightweight. And it's really a fantastic product. And bamboo is not really what I go after in terms of the marketing. I really go after cotton and polyester, because cotton is a huge user of the world's insecticides, including neonicotinoids, which are killing bird and bee populations. Cotton can use anywhere from 16 to 24% of the world's insecticides by itself any given year as a crop. And it's also a huge water user, big energy user. There's a bunch of suboptimalities with cotton. And then polyester is, of course, the number one source of microplastics in the ocean. So in our waterways and in our airways, a single polyester sheet set. So one guy like this, if it was made of polyester, could release 100 million or more microplastic fibers into waterways every year through the laundry if you wash your sheets once a month, which I hope you do. Yeah. And so, the problem with microplastics now is so out of control. They say that human beings are now ingesting a credit card's worth of microplastic every week in the water and the food that we drink and eat. And so that's really what I'm trying to educate people on, because cotton is about a third of the market. Polyester is about 2/3. And then bamboo and silk and all the other materials, eucalyptus lyocell, they're all still very small percentages of the market. And the reason why the dominance of those two other fabrics is because cotton's sort of a legacy product, and there's a huge amount of supply, which means that there's a huge amount of production capability at a low cost. And then polyester is cheap, made from oil, petrochemicals, and that includes derivatives like other petrochemical based synthetics like spandex and acrylic. And there's just an enormous amount of petrochemical based fabric in the world, and it's gonna kill us long term. And so that's what I'm really trying to focus on for the messaging.
Yep. And I can understand fully. So I love people's why, Colin. And can you just tell us what's yours?
The why, why start a company, or why Sheets and Giggles, or why do I get out of bed in the morning? Because
Yeah,
it's
just
hard. It's really hard to get out of bed. I'm telling you, these are the best. Uh, um, I think that the why for me is, I think when you have gotten fired or laid off a few times in your early career, like I said, I had the realization maybe earlier on than some other people that have had it in the last 12 months that, it's not a good feeling when you realize that you are completely beholden to somebody else and somebody else's potentially bad decisions. In my last company's case, I was laid off at 1 p.m. on a Monday without my last week's paycheck. I had to buy back my computer if I wanted to keep it. Lost my health care, and that all happened because somebody in the product team couldn't source a component of the product that we were building, um which is I didn't have anything to do with that. And it's a really bizarre thing in the US where a trickle down problem of somebody not sourcing the right component can cause biz dev people on the same company to, lose their access to go see a doctor. It's really when you zoom out, it's bizarre, man. We've set up a weird system for ourselves in the US where, like how good are you at selling bed sheets? All right, great. That determines your child's access to a doctor. Um and so it's which is just it's the dumbest thing. And so for me, I think that my why is really, I just hate, I hate that feeling of the lack of independence, and that dependence on other people, for your livelihood and for your health. And so I'm definitely pretty fiercely independent, and makes her a bad employee, makes her a pretty good founder, I think. So that's my why, I think, is I really wanted that independence.
cool, cool. Great answer. So, what drives you, Colin?
Drives me. I think now at this stage, we're in year 4 of the business. We are just about to ship our 100,000th unit. So initially the drive was, let's get off the ground, and I'll make, enough money to pay my rent. Um, and maybe we can do some good along the way. Now in the last 12 months, we've donated over $100,000 in cash and in products to charity. We've planted tens of thousands of trees, one per order. We have pledged 1% of our company's equity, profits, time, and products to local Colorado charities. um, and we've got a great team of people who I really, really care about. Not too cliche, but like they're just good folks that I enjoy spending time with, and I want to hire more people that fit that mold. So for me, it's, I think at this point, um, my drive is to make a pretty big change in the world. And I don't know what it looks like. I've never been one for like these audacious or grandiose startup missions about like, we're, like, because they always morph into like a really shitty recruiting tool. Like, we're changing the way that cultures interact with each other. Like, no, like, you sell suitcases on the internet. Like, it's okay. Like, own it, right? Like, we're changing personal hygiene. Like, no, you sell a toothbrush on the internet. Like, it's cool. Like, it's okay. Like, just own it. And so for me, I've always said, like, we just sell sheets on the internet, right? That's like, I don't try to do the whole grandiose thing. But at the end of the day, you look back and you see, yeah, in 3 years of business, we've donated over $100,000. We've planted tens of thousands of trees. We have, sent homeless shelters sheet sets, hundreds of sheet sets, to help slow the spread of coronavirus in Denver, and isolate symptomatic individuals that were coming in. Like, and we're such a small business. So for me, I've looked up and I realized I've got this team of people who really, I would say give a sheet if I wasn't being serious, but they really care, and they really like each other, and they're funny, and they're cool and unique. And I really now want to take that core that we've built, and I want to release, pillows and mattresses and bed frames, and mattress toppers and protectors, and move into the bathroom with towels and bath mats and curtains for the living room. there are so many areas where, when I just bought this home, and I'm very, very thankful that I am able to purchase a home at this age. It's a bloodbath here in the US right now in real estate. I'm now outfitting it and I'm shopping for rugs and curtains and other home textiles. And it's all polyurethane. It's all polyurethane. It's all unsustainable. It's all just the worst possible stuff, but it's cheap. And I think that that's the thing that's killing me, is that we're building products now in the US, I don't know about abroad, for two classes of consumers. And that's it's a what's happening with income inequality, and businesses are responding to it by building products that are cheap and bad for you and that fall apart, and then they're building products that are wildly expensive and for people who have a lot of disposable income. And the middle class, and those middle class of products, those good durable products that are good value, are disappearing. And it's really interesting to watch on the micro level what's reflecting in the macro trends. And so for me, I think that, like, my drive long term is to build sustainable, good, affordable products for the home, for the bedroom, that we can be really proud of and that people can feel good about having in their homes.
Wow, there's a massive niche just coming out of that little piece alone, and I'm sure that's worth some good thought. Daring to be different is something that I embrace. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that life is boring enough as it is without being different. So, like, I don't know. I've always had this fear. I've gone to therapy for this. And it's gonna sound like a really privileged fear. So just on the front end, I know it sounds, shitty. But I've always had this fear of, like, winding up at the end of the cul-de-sac, like, like washing my car in the driveway, like, while, like, the kids play, like, in the backyard, and I'm, that, like, that's my life, like, that's, like, I live and die, and that's it, and but, like, again, that's such it's an awful thing to say, because that's like a dream for so many, and it's such a, for human history, that's such an unattainable thing to think about getting. But for me, I think that I just, I don't know, daring to be different. I've it's hard to articulate. I have a fear of being the same as everyone else, and I think that I act that fear out in the business that I've built, in the way that I live my life, how I act with my friends, how I act with my family. The way that I'm speaking to you and the way that I speak to my investors and my family and my friends, it's the same. I don't put on that, commuter hat of Colin as a different person as a CEO versus a different person with his significant other versus a different person with his friends versus with his family. And I think so many people hate the morning commute, not because they hate the traffic, like, yeah, it's a component of it, but because for 30 minutes they're putting themselves in the persona of who they are at work, and they're removing the persona of who they are in real life in their home. And I think people hate that. I think people hate that forced change of, you are no longer Colin, you are now the team member, the employee, the manager. And and i i think that for me is like that fear that I have of just falling into that general mode, and that daily life is what really, being different is about, to me, is about not succumbing um to that fake persona that so many people have to put on every day before they go into the workplace.
Yeah, wow, that's some pretty
Maybe
profound
heavy.
stuff there. Absolutely, but
Sorry. Am I?
no, I can. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
uh,
Colin, in 2018, Sheets and Giggles became the number one all-time crowd-funded sheet on Indiegogo.
yeah.
How did there's a lot of people out there looking for investment running around the world that'll be watching this. How did you manage that in just one or two hints?
So it's a funny qualifier. Largest crowdfunding campaign for bed sheets, right? It's like, how many can, and on the Indiegogo platform. I think there was one bigger on Kickstarter at the time. But we actually had two competitors launch the same day, May 1st, 2018, which was 3 years ago now. We had two competitors launch the same day on the same website on Indiegogo, and we had one made 15,000, the other made 50,000, and we made 284,000. And so there were a few reasons why that was. One is the brand was lightning in a bottle. Two was that we were differentiating, I think, very meaningfully with the product. But three was the preparation. And so in terms of the hints to drop to the audience, I'll just rapid fire here kind of the success formula for a crowdfunding campaign for anyone who's interested in doing a crowdfunding campaign. Start with your goal and work backwards. So if you have $100,000 goal, generally speaking, you want 30% of your goal on day one. And so that means you need $30,000 on day one. That's just the way the crowdfunding math kind of works out. It shoots up, it plateaus, and then there's a little boost at the end. So if you need 30% of your goal on day one, your goal is $100,000, you need $30,000 on day one. And if you have a $100 average order value, which is what we had, that, $70 for a set of sheets, I assume 1.5 units per order. So $100 average order value. Then that means I need 300 customers on day one to get to $30,000. And if I need 300 customers on day one, that ain't going to be my friends and family. I got a lot of friends and family. They're not going to all buy a set of sheets on day one, right? People get busy. They don't love you as much as you think they do. So those day one customers are going to come from your email list. And so an email list will reasonably convert at about 3%. And so if you need 300 customers on day one, you need 10,000 emails before you launch.
Yep.
And so that became my singular focus from February through April 2018. It was content, advertisement, and email capture. And then we would nurture those people with an email flow every couple weeks of, are you getting hyped? Are you excited? Here's the value prop. Here's a survey. Which colors would you like? You have a hand in creating the product. It was very collaborative. And when we got to 11,000 emails, we were running Facebook ads with landing pages and collecting these emails at a reasonable cost of acquisition. We ended up shutting off the funnel because we hit 11,000 emails and we felt good about where we were. And sure enough, that email list ended up converting at about 4.5%. We made $45,000 on day one, and then that ballooned into a $284,000 campaign. So that's the formula, and that's how I would do it.
Brilliant. I'm sure there's some people out there that'll be furiously writing some of those things down.
And I've got a great crowdfunding agency that I worked with. Also, that's the other piece of the pie is the crowdfunding space is super predatory, like incredibly predatory. And so I would highly recommend being very, very careful and selective and move slowly with who you choose as your agency partner. And I've got one that I trust with my life. I'll give a shout out to Will Russell over at Russell Marketing. I don't get any kickbacks or anything. He's my spiritual co-founder. And he flew out to Colorado to meet me, to whiteboard and to talk about goals back in January 2018. And it's really hard to find somebody to trust in that space.
Yep, and it's probably like recruitment is you need to take your time over the selection and then fire fast, so get it up and running.
Totally.
Good stuff there. So you went from zero to $1 million turnover, shipping over 100,000 units, as you just said, into the USA market in just such a short period of time. What were the top 2 or 3 things that you think you did, other than what we've discussed and the obvious, that got you such traction?
Well, so you can't, so the product's fantastic. Like, we have great repeat business. People buy a single set and they'll buy 2 more sets for their guest rooms or for laundry day. We now have comforters and duvet covers. So product line expansion has been important for us. So first and foremost, just shout out to my product team for delivering an absolutely fantastic product. Softer than cotton, more breathable, more cooling, perfect for summer, but all year round is temperature regulating. And it's also very like moisture wicking. So if you are prone to night sweats, you'll never wake up in a pool of sweat. So they're really, really fantastic product on top of the sustainability. I think that's, for me, just, I think you can't be successful without a great product. And then from the marketing standpoint, we're not doing anything, I think, that's too secret sauce. There's some things that are, I think, more unique and interesting in terms of the channels that we use or the way that we speak to people. But on a high level, my golden rule is always to treat our customers the way that we want to be treated as customers and as human beings. We buy stuff from other companies too, right? And so my customer care team, my marketing team, they have the mandate that everything they do should be funneled through the eyes of, would I like it if a company did this for or to me? And that's kind of our golden rule. And I think that that's been hugely successful for us because our customer service has a 99% satisfaction rating. We have 30 dissatisfied customers out of our last 2,500 survey responses for customer care, uh, which is insane. I think that that has been a real big driver of our success, is that sort of golden rule mentality. And then just being so different, being that visually striking content, having three men in bed drinking red wine with avocado face masks on. Like if you're scrolling on Instagram and you see that, like you stop, like because you say, what the hell did I just see? And having women in the bedroom doing we have one where like they're doing sawing and hammering and like doing tour, and it's like, why would a bed sheets company have sawdust kicking up in the bedroom? And it's because we're making the joke about sawing logs, which means snoring, and
Yep.
and the vernacular. And so like doing things like that and bits like that and creating centralized bits that I think are really funny are definitely a big part of the success. And you won't see anybody else do it. And the beauty is, all these other brands, their bed has been made, so to speak, no pun intended. They no longer can do those things, because it would be very odd to see Casper or Brooklinen or Bed Bath and Beyond or someone like that do something so outrageous and out of left field, because they've already made their bed with the luxury messaging and with the branding around luxury. And so it feels forced and cringy when other people try to reproduce our success. Whereas we, from day one, have vacillated between planting tens of thousands of trees in areas that need reforestation, to talking, winning Good Housekeeping's best overall sheets in their March 2021 issue, to posting SpongeBob memes on our Instagram. And that's who we are. It's a brand about nothing. It's a Seinfeld of brands. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Brilliant. It's such an interesting perspective, because you've really, you're an online business, and the retail has been absolutely smashed around the world in the last probably 18 months because of
Yeah,
COVID. You probably had to
there was
walk
some
up.
there was something that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, brick and mortar.
We have something called the High Street here in the UK, and I'm sure you've probably referred to it as a mall in or a mall in the US.
Yeah,
So
mall. You had it. Yeah.
you must have a bit of a head start on some of the traditional bricks and mortar retailers. So, COVID to you, did you do anything different from where you started the business before COVID?
Oh yeah, I mean we tripled the business in a year, but demand was great. Supply was a nightmare. So demand was really good because you had a huge surge in e-commerce adoption, and that was really great for us to ride that wave. And people were staying at home more, and they were investing in their homes. And so that was really good. But the supply chain and the global logistics and everything down to the last mile with FedEx and UPS, and finding folks to unload your shipments, and working in your warehouses, it was a total nightmare. I'm glad that it's calming down and coming to a close, so to speak. I know that there's still a lot of variants out there, and the world's not vaccinated yet, so I'm not trying to make light of it, but it is nice to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so the supply chain was definitely a nightmare. But thankfully, you can fix supply. You can't fix demand.
Yep.
And so I'm happy that that was the problem.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And there's a few people out there that have suffered badly, but there's an example of a retailer that's done brilliantly, and perhaps even better than pre-COVID. Tell me about, I know it's coming along on the theme of having fun and giggles and stuff. Tell me about the Good Morning America interview. How did you end up getting that? And that must have been massive in terms of
Yeah,
publicity for you.
I remember the day. Yeah, it was huge. I remember the day. I get the phone call from the producer, and they said, "All right, you got the spot." That was really cool. And it was just like a very powerful moment for me. Um, so basically, we a year ago in March, April, we decided to donate 20% of our sales for 30 days to COVID relief in Colorado because I feel a real maybe too much of an obligation to fellow man. My dad really instilled in me that we're our brother's keeper, and I definitely have a lot of thoughts and feelings around trying to help people as much as possible. And so I made a pledge that no one would be laid off at Sheets and Giggles. And I'm even though our sales had dropped 30% and our supply chain had shut down, and we had lost our line of credit for inventory financing. Um, we had a lot of problems, and it was pretty scary. And I told my team, I said, "Hey, I want you guys to focus on your work. I want you to focus on your creativity, and don't worry about your family's healthcare. Don't worry about your because people were getting laid off left and right, and my team was asking me what's going on. Can you give us some transparency?" And so I did them one better, and I posted on YouTube a pledge that not only would we not lay anybody off, but also we were going to donate 20% of our sales to COVID-19 relief in Colorado for 30 days. And that ended up tallying $40,000 in cash that we donated to the COVID-19 relief fund, which was started by the governor's office and Mile High United Way. And that was a big amount. That was, I think that like like Comcast and, the Broncos, which is a big football team out here, had both donated. I can't remember what the amounts were. It was like, you know, 50,000 or $100,000 or something like that. And then you had Sheets and Giggles donate $40,000. And so the governor's office called me and they said, "Hey, we wanted to talk. This is really big amount, and this is really, really incredible stuff." And then we did a little, like blog post in conjunction with them about it. Amazon's PR team, because we sell on Amazon, they caught wind of the donation, because they were looking for feel good stories about small businesses last year because they were, I think everybody needed some feel good. And they named us as one of 6 small businesses helping during the pandemic. They wrote a blog about us, and then that led to Good Morning America hearing about us and learning about us, and reaching out to me to talk to me on the phone. And then they basically said, we'd like you to be our small business spotlight on Black Friday. And then they had a film crew meet me in Denver, and we filmed the interview, and we filmed it by phone, which was kind of funny for such a big program. And then over Thanksgiving weekend, I got to be with my family and watch my little weird pun based betting company be on GMA, and it was just totally surreal. And so I feel very grateful and thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, but funny how you make your own luck, and what an interesting story that I'm sure people could replicate.
We had when I made that donation, that pledge, we had, and I don't it's not this is not gloating, but we had some of my investors get upset with me, and they said that you're a small business, you're a startup, you are in year, it was our second full year of operation. 2019 was our first full year of operation. And they said, you're making a bad decision. You should not be donating cash. You should be holding as much cash as you possibly can. And I had some people get really upset with me. And I said, all I said at that point in time was like, look, I believe that the way that companies treat their communities, their employees, and their customers during this period of time when everybody is at a very heightened state of urgency, and fear, is going to define the company for the next decade. And that's what I said. I think that Mark Cuban originally said something like that. And that was something that really resonated with me, where, how a company treated their people, when all their people, their team, their communities, was going to be remembered and reverberate for a very long time. And I told my investors, I said, I don't know how this is going to come back to us. And we're not planning on promoting it. We're not pitching it to people to cover, because that feels gross, and I don't really want to do that either. But I said that it will come back to us. I was like, this is not an insignificant thing, and it will come back to us. And sure enough, 6 months later, I looked up and I'm on Good Morning America. My face is on Good Morning America. So I got to make some fun phone calls and tell some people, hey, did you watch GMA
Yeah.
yesterday? And so, it was overall, it was a big net positive, and ended up being both a good decision ethically, and for us, for as like empathetic people who really care about our Colorado community, and then ended up being a good decision strategically as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it came back 25x in some sales too.
Very
So
much so. Yeah, it was great.
interesting, reciprocation. So I speak about Amazon and some of the bad things that Amazon does, in my opinion. I'm not going to go into that right now.
Yeah.
But one of the issues is ghosting, and I've got plenty of clients around the world that have come up with a product. Maybe you're a little bit different because you're fairly unique, where they've built the next mousetrap. They get it on Amazon. It gets to number one, and next thing Amazon poke
Right.
up with 5 or 10 competitors against that. How do you deal with that, or does it not come into play?
It all comes into play. They already have their eucalyptus sheet. They already built one. So I like Amazon overall. I have my own thoughts on their business practices. I have more thoughts on the state of regulatory capture in the United States that has allowed a multi-trillion-dollar company to vertically integrate and basically own monopolies in multiple industries. That is a topic for another podcast. But for me as a whole, I used to live in Seattle. I know folks that work at Amazon. I know the Amazon PR team very well. I think they're great people who care, and who are really smart, talented folks that I enjoy working with. That being said, yeah, they'll build your product. It's their stated business model for their retail, so they're not hiding anything. So what you have to do is kind of work around that. And so for me, what I really tried to do was to ensure that we owned the SEO around eucalyptus sheets. So if you search for eucalyptus sheets on Amazon or on Google, we're either the number 1 or 2 result every time. And we still, very competitively focus on that result, where we rank very highly for eucalyptus comforter. And basically my thought process was, I want it to be a good thing if Amazon popularizes eucalyptus sheets. I want it to be a good thing if Bed Bath & Beyond popularizes eucalyptus sheets. I want, if they train their audience that this is a new fabric category and a really awesome thing that they should be paying attention to, then Sheets and Giggles needs to benefit from that instead of lose from that. And so that was my main focus was, I don't care if they make their own product. I need to position us to be the de facto category leader. And so, because if we take 50% of the pie right now, which we do, but that pie goes 100x, and we take 10% of that pie, very happy with that outcome. And so that to me is the way that I think about it and build around it.
So you've always wanted to become the Hoover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bingo.
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah, and we have all the articles about us, and oh my God, these eucalyptus sheets are the best. And we have a lot of validity, and we just won Good Housekeeping's best overall sheets a couple months ago, like out of 40 different sheets they tested. So I think we're very well on our way to being that de facto brand in an emerging category.
Yep. So other than having a laugh and being different, where's Sheets and Giggles and Colin going to be in 5 years' time?
5 years is a long time, man. I 5 years ago, I moved to Colorado for another startup. I was the 3 relationships ago. I was 26. And the amount of change in 5 years is just astronomical. So I think that I don't like to predict that far out. For Sheets and Giggles, I know that we will have a full sustainable suite of bedroom and home products. So we're currently building our mattress. I have the prototype in my guest room. It's going to be fantastic. Recycled steel coils, natural latex, eucalyptus lyocell wrapper, no plastic in the packaging, or plant-based plastic for the vacuum seal, which is going to be very unique in the category. Everybody else ships their mattress with enough plastic to kill a yak. We're working on our reclaimed wood bed frame. We're working on our zero plastic mattress protector. We're working on lyocell curtains. And we have our towel prototypes all finished. So underwear and robes and pajamas, like we're about to explode in terms of our product roadmap. And that to me is very exciting, because when you have, tens of thousands of people in your customer ecosystem, you bleed them to other people if you don't have the products that they need. If somebody says, "Oh my God, these sheets are the best sheets I've ever had. I want to buy my pillows out of the same material," you lose them because you don't have the pillows and they're not going to wait. They're not going to wait around to buy, months to buy your pillows. So, that's a big piece of it, is the product roadmap expansion. We're going to continue to make some noise and educate people on polyester. That's my big thing is, there's so many, all these other bed sheets companies, man, they say high performance fabric, high tech fabric, athletic fabric, performance fabric. They'll say anything to avoid saying the word polyester.
Mhm.
And it's you can make a set of polyester sheets for $3 off the manufacturing line, and that's why you can sell them for 20. And
Yep.
anyone selling you polyester sheets for $100, you'd tell them to go fuck themselves. But there's a lot of people that do that too.
Yep.
And so for me, I'm really interested in like continuing to shake up this industry a little bit and be the fly in the ointment. It's a lot of fun for me because I don't really have like a historical stake or traditional like feeling about the industry. Like I've never been like, oh, I've been obsessed with bed sheets my whole life. No, it's fun. Like I love building this company. It's just fun. And people who take it a little bit more seriously, they treat it as a cathedral. They don't like that we treat it more as a circus. And I feel the same way about sports. Like, why are we so serious about sports? It's entertainment. It's a circus, not a cathedral. And so that to me is, I think, for the business, we're going to keep along that path and keep that same brand ethos. Um, and I really want to look up one day and see that we've planted 1 million trees for 1 million orders, and that would be so unbelievably special. Um, and then for me personally, I don't know. 5 years ago, I moved to Colorado. I thought that I'd be here for maybe a year or 2 years, and now I live in a wonderful home just outside of Denver that my girlfriend's in the process of moving into, and um, I feel very lucky and fortunate to just be where I am. And so I'll just keep being myself, and hopefully good things keep happening.
Yeah. Great answer. And some of the millennials that I know well, like my children, have similar attitudes. And it's interesting to see the change on where people of my generation focused on more the long term, and you guys are right on the minute. So I don't think it's right or wrong. It's just it's interesting the difference.
I think it's partially because we've lived through several once in a lifetime crises. And every generation lives through their crises, like, and my mom always reminds me about the Cuban Missile Crisis, and about the Vietnam War, and about Kent State, and civil unrest, and there's always been things, right, that are cause for alarm and concern. I think that probably the difference between my generation in terms of like the focus on the now is probably the amplification of all of those crises to everyday sort of amplification in your brain. And then the fact that, yeah, we've lived through 2 or 3 once in a lifetime financial crashes. We've lived through multiple unjust wars. We've lived through now a pandemic in our early life. And so I think that like that focus on the now is becoming more and more prevalent. And it's why I have buddies who have bet their entire life savings on AMC stock or or Dogecoin. and it's because they're doing a similar cost benefit analysis to what I did when I started Sheets and Giggles, and they're saying if I lose $10,000 or $20,000, yeah, I'll start from zero. That's not good. But if it goes 100x, then I could change my life.
Yep.
And they're treating the world as a casino at this point. And I think there's like a really interesting and scary potential long-term effect of that type of mentality. But it's becoming extremely prevalent in my generation. I don't blame anyone for having that mentality.
Colin, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today, and that time's just slipped by really quickly. I wish you all the best, and I thank you so much for your contribution today, and I look forward to watching with interest the progress of the company over time. But Colin McIntosh, thank you very much.
Thanks, John, and this is a great way to kick off my birthday, so I appreciate you having me on the program.
Have a great day.
Yeah, we'll do.